All right, are we on?
Yep, ready.
All right, Tony's got his headphones on, which means we're supposed to do things now, right?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Soman Podcast, episode number 6. We are now the greatest, most prestigious podcast ever to come out of the Mankato area, apparently. Is that how it goes? Whatever we are? Doesn't matter. But the Soman Podcast, we have necessary conversations that we would have had anyway, or something to that effect. We still got to figure that out. But
Welcome to the Soman Podcast, conversations we would have had anyway.
there you go. We should just keep it at that. But
Big shout out to Bolton Mink Studios. I think we are the longest running podcast in this studio's history with episode 6. This is going to be the transplant episode. And so I'll just kind of have a pause there. It's transplants for people that moved to Mankato or southern Minnesota who are not from here. So we're not talking about actual transplants.
like organ donation or anything
right.
like that.
That would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
If we got
We
into
should
that.
get a guy that does organ transplants. And
We should
stuff.
get
But
that
anyway,
in
that's
there.
a different.
And we have the cooler for it right here.
Yeah.
So big shout out to Pelican.
Hearts in there.
If you want to sponsor Pelican, thank you. I will be stalking you again after this gets posted.
Hashtag.
So we have Brent Christopherson, who is a friend of mine from the Mankato area, but he's actually not from here. He is also a transplant, and we met through some mutual friends a couple of years back, and I invited him to come onto our podcast to talk about what it's like to live in southern Minnesota, Mankato, and also not be from here, and what that feels like. So I'd like to start out with, we'll go back to Brozik, and he can tell us, where he's from, and then we'll go to me and Brent, and we'll kick it off.
Cool.
Well, I'm the easiest one. I was originally born in Red Wing, Minnesota, which I don't even know if I've ever told you that, but
I didn't know that.
was born in Red Wing, Minnesota when I was 2. My dad at that time worked for Norwest Bank, which is now Wells Fargo. And my mom, when I was born, she was doing real estate, and then she ended up staying home because I was such a child that she had to stay home.
He
with
still
me.
is a child.
Yeah, I was an interesting kid. But anyway, so she stayed home. My dad was working at Norwest, and he got a promotion to come to Mankato. So we moved to Mankato when I was 2, so that's 1988, and we've been here ever since. So I had a small stint at the University of Minnesota Duluth, which episode number 5, we talked with Dan Sprague a little bit about that.
Yep.
But other than that, Mankato's basically been my little worldview, other than a little study abroad in England, which maybe that should be a different episode. But that's my story, so it's pretty short and to the point.
Let's pivot to England.
Yeah, we
Sounds
can
interesting.
we can talk about that too.
That'd be awesome.
Wade H. Abid II, age 39 still. I was also, which I don't know if you knew this, I was also born in Red Wing, Minnesota.
Oh, you weren't.
Get
You were not.
I was not. I'm totally lying. That's just BS.
That would have been awesome.
It
It would have
would've
been
been
like
awesome.
the coolest connection ever.
Yeah,
right there.
but I've been to Red Wing. They have nice boots.
Beautiful place.
Really, downtown's great. It's like the St. James Hotel,
St. James
Charles,
Hotel,
right?
yes.
Very scenic.
Yep. They just put
And,
a new bridge in, by the way. Very cool looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're on the river boating, check that out.
It's a gorgeous town. I worked at Amdahl's Motors in Red Wing.
Did you really?
Swear to God.
You did not.
I swear to how would I know that dealership, right?
Because you drove by it once? I don't know.
So I sat in Amdahl Motors dealership, which is like Chevy brand, and I worked the Enterprise Rent-A-Car desk out of that dealership location from my job in Hastings, Minnesota. So anyway, I was born in Sterling, Illinois, which is northern Illinois, kind of by Rockford or DeKalb for anybody in my family listening. And then when I was about 1, I moved to Waukegan, Illinois, and so that's where I grew up. And so I'm not from Mankato, but I've lived in Mankato for about 10 years. But, roots run deep kind of thing. So that's why I got my Cubs hat on.
Yeah, you guys have matching hats on.
Did
I'm surprised you
not
don't have
plan
red
this.
shoes.
I-
too.
What's funny is he does have red shoes. And I wore these shoes because he has
I almost wore 'em.
Swear to God, I was like, he might wear these.
I
So,
think it would have been a little too weird, a little too on the
right.
point.
Like,
No, there's nothing too weird.
no, what's funny
That would
is
be great.
growing up in like the Chicagoland area, there's kind of a few different uniforms, I guess you could say, like a Wrigleyville kind of uniform, and red New Balance shoes and like a Cubs hat, like is kind of a uniform. and we met for some social event or a happy hour or something, and we're wearing the same stuff.
It was right after the playoffs too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
God.
the uniform.
Yep.
So anyway, to Brent. What's up with you?
Yeah, Brent Christopherson. I am from Bangor, Wisconsin by way of birth.
Bangor?
Bangor. So it's spelled the same way as Bangor, Maine.
Okay. I
It's,
didn't know there was a Bangor, Maine either.
There is. That's my least favorite Bangor, though.
Well, my Bangor has more white people, I think, and I don't think it's as cool as Bangor, Maine in general.
You're in pretty stiff competition
Bringing
for the
race into it.
Caucasianness.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I crossed the line already. I just lost half your listeners.
No, I don't think so.
No, the 25 people that are going to listen to this, which mostly are relatives of ours.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I've been in Mankato for, gosh, I think it's been 4.5 years now. My wife and I moved here 4.5 years ago. She grew up here. That's
Okay.
one of the reasons how we ended up here.
What's your wife's name?
Erin.
Erin, okay.
From
Erin.
Hi, Erin. The camera's right there. You can
my
look at that
wife's
one or
name
that one.
is Kelly. So hi, Kelly.
Lisa, love you.
Lisa,
You're
Erin,
beautiful.
Kelly.
Sorry about what's going to be said. My bad.
Share this with your friends, please. Thanks for letting us out to do this. So I want to get to, have you lived other places? And so I know so you've been to Duluth and you were there. When you were there, I mean, you knew it was most likely going to be temporary.
I was going to live in Duluth up until
And stay there?
I was going to stay there. I
Okay.
love Duluth. It's my favorite
beautiful.
place.
Yeah.
Favorite place on the planet.
Never been there in the winter, though.
Oh, dude. Even in the winter was amazing. Like, I loved everything about Duluth.
We already don't get along.
Yeah.
This is not a good sign.
Well, like, to me, I have my whole thing in Duluth. Like, I have clients or friends or whatever that'll ask me, they're like, hey, my son or daughter's thinking about going to Duluth. Like, what do you suggest? And I'm like, well, the number one thing is if they can find something to do, no matter what the temperature is, then they'll love it. If they if they can go out and they got some gear they can put on and they can go cross country skiing in a blizzard, they're gonna absolutely love it. If they can't handle shoveling snow, they're gonna hate it and they'll be back in one semester. But I mean, I loved it not until it was like after I graduated and my parents were like, hey, we're like completely cutting you off unless you figure your life out. And I'm like, my job prospects are a lot better in Mankato because this is the beginning of 2009.
Yep.
I'm sorry, end of 2009 and into 10. And so like job prospects in Duluth were not very good at that point. So that's why I came back down here. But originally I was going to stay up there.
So you've lived, I mean, I know you got Bangor, and just for like some relevance for location for Bangor, Wisconsin,
It's
where is it near? Is it near La Crosse, Wausau?
near La Crosse.
Okay.
It's actually called the Village of Bangor. It's
Yeah.
a village.
Yeah.
There's a grocery store, a school, a gas
Cheese
station.
factory.
Cheese factory.
Did I get it right? There is?
There is.
All right.
Yeah,
I lived right by it.
I like these places.
7 churches, 7 bars. Everything you'd expect in a village.
Okay.
God and beer and cheese. All right.
So for folks listening, if you know like State Highway 35,
90.
90.
Okay.
And there's one that runs on the river through La Crosse, that side of Wisconsin. So it's the side that's closest to the Mississippi River,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yep.
So so you left high school and finished and all that kind of stuff, and then you went to college someplace in state, out of state?
I went to Winona State here in Minnesota.
Okay.
And how I'm familiar with Red Wing is whenever I go up to the cities, I take 1461 straight up there. And Red Wing's, I mean, that whole drive is beautiful.
Yes.
I
Yep.
haven't done it in years, but
But the whole bluff of that
Yes.
side of the state, and like what's it called, the driftless area and the bluffs and all that stuff is
Yeah.
beautiful. So you went to Winona State, and then so you've lived in Minnesota before, obviously, right?
Yes.
Because you went to Winona. So then, what happens after Winona? Where do you go? Do you head back?
What did you go to school for?
business.
Business, okay.
Initially accounting.
Okay.
Got rid of that.
Okay.
Because I'm not smart.
Well, you're not. You seem more interactive and not really boring. So
Little
probably
bit.
accountant maybe isn't for you. But
Yeah.
my brother-in-law is going to love that. Mike, if you're listening, sorry.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been an accountant. That sounds like an awesome job.
I think I
Being
crave
covered.
it now.
Like based on real technical skills.
Yeah.
Not having to talk to people.
Right.
So,
It's like-
so back up. Sorry to interrupt. So you
Please.
graduate, and now where do you go?
In Winona, the main company there is called Fastenal. That's where headquarters were.
Yeah.
So I got an internship there in sales. Stayed on after graduation and did some sales. Had an opportunity to move out east to work in their Norfolk branch, Norfolk, Virginia, to go sell to all the military bases.
Which Fastenal is a great company, by the way. And if you've seen what they've been doing like recently,
I haven't.
if you check the news on it, they've done pretty well. That brand is doing well. And that stands a test of time because which this is nice actually, because we're a little similar in age,
I'm not that different.
Well, no, I mean,
I'm not 39. Yeah, close.
First I was old. Now now we're the
you're
same
in the
age.
middle.
Got it. And so that brand has sustained and grown and stood the test of time. So you were in Winona and then you went to Norfolk.
Virginia Beach, I lived in for 2 years.
Okay.
Were you married at this point? Or
No, just
okay.
me. And
Just super happy and enjoying life.
never. And here's the thing, Bangor, yes, and
happy to
yes,
live.
Sorry.
Bangor and Winona were the only two places I've ever been. We didn't travel a lot as a family, except for Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Madison. Hey,
Yep.
I like both cities. I love them, man.
Great places.
Yeah.
so traveling out east was a big deal for me. Complete culture shock, and lasted 2 years. Went broke. I mean, as you expect.
Yeah.
Didn't sell as much as I'd hoped, probably.
So when you say culture shock, like tell me what the culture shock is. I've been out east a little bit, but not nearly as much. Like I go to like Pittsburgh, and that's basically as far as
So
I go.
basically, sorry, I want to jump in because I got a thing just kind of like saying, ask this question. So you like the Cubs, I like the Cubs. This is totally not related at all.
You're
I like
trumping my question.
Sorry, it's a pause. Like put
Okay,
a
time
pin,
out.
put a pin
I'll
in it.
choose
Right?
which question I like
Put a pin in
more.
it. All right, that's
Okay.
fine. That's fine.
I like the Bears football team. Are you a Packer guy?
I am a Packer guy.
Right. I like the Chicago Bulls. Are you?
Do
you really care about basketball?
When I was a kid, I was all Bulls.
Bulls. Okay, got it.
Bandwagon jumper, though.
Yeah, and then for hockey,
Didn't do hockey.
that's because Wisconsin doesn't have a pro hockey team, baby.
We
That's
don't
why.
do-
But they
we
do
don't
have the
do
Kohl
hockey.
Center.
But they do have
and
the Kohl Center, which is
Badgers.
cool.
Which
So-
at that point they were pretty on the point
Yeah.
with when you were coming through.
Have I mentioned I grew up in a village where
Yeah.
we only had 1,000 people? I had 40 kids in my class.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford to have all these different sports you speak of. It was
No,
straight
like not-
baseball, basketball, and football.
Yeah, not like generally in the state. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So I'll argue that Pittsburgh is not the East.
It
and,
isn't, no.
Neither is Norfolk, Virginia. But okay, anyway. So
Southeast.
culture shock, pin taken out.
Okay.
Bam.
I don't want to make it seem shocking. It was more so because I never left.
Yeah.
Being in a completely different place, all of a sudden you don't have your network and your support system, and you have to figure things out by yourself. And it's a big to-do. And as a 22-year-old at the time, I think that was probably the most shocking.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't the people. I was always good at getting along with whoever.
So is it like you just don't, you go to work and then you're done with work, you just don't know what to do, where to go, what to see?
Couldn't surf.
Okay.
That was a problem.
You couldn't surf because you didn't like it, or you're bad at it, or didn't try?
All of the above.
Okay.
No, this is the part of it. When it's tough, and this is where we're getting at, I believe, in the conversation of being a transplant. And this has evolved in every place I've lived. It's not just been Norfolk, Virginia, and then to Mankato. There's a few others, but being younger, making those connections and building your network, and just randomly, hey, how you doing? It's different versus when you're in college. When you're already buzzed up, you've already got a six-pack in you, and you'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
That was the biggest difference. And I am I'm a little bit of an introvert anyway.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenge.
So, explain how, because to me, this is just, again, I'm my subjective viewpoint because I'm from Mankato and all that stuff that we already went over. But, don't you have, say, a group of coworkers or something like that
Yes.
you get along with, or not? I mean, was that something did that help? Did it not? What was that like?
100%. There were a few coworkers that I did go out with, and that was my social network.
Yeah.
And I think you get to the point where when you're comfortable, you expand beyond that.
Yeah.
You start meeting other people. I never got to that point.
Because you were there for 2 years?
2 years, and the last year I was broke. And so I came back to the Midwest. I went someplace much cheaper, Minneapolis.
Okay.
Okay, so you left from Norfolk or Norfolk, Virginia,
Yeah.
and then you moved to Minneapolis, and you're 24 or 25.
I was 24 when I got to Minneapolis.
Okay. And then how long were you there?
2 years. Oh, this is where Erin's going to be mad at me. 2 years, because this is when I met my wife
Okay.
at work. And so we were living in Minneapolis, loved the area. She wanted to go to law school.
Oh God,
And I know, right?
I've heard horror stories.
it's not good.
And I assumed I would be, I just didn't think twice about it. Like, okay, where are we going? I don't know that she had that same assumption, but it just happened. I followed her. We ended up going out east from Minneapolis. She went to Rutgers for law school.
Which is in Camden, New Jersey.
Newark.
Excuse me, Newark, New Jersey. The other Camden of New Jersey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we spent in total between Newark, Jersey City, New Jersey, the Lower East Side of New York, and Westchester area.
Yeah.
About 7.5 years.
So
up there.
is that Westchester, PA?
New York?
New York.
Yes.
Okay. So for folks to kind of like track that whole deal, this is northern New Jersey for Rutgers, and then if you're in Jersey City, it's the place you can see kind of across the water into Jersey if you're in New York City, right? So for Midwestern kind of flatlanders like me, so you're in kind of this what's called like the tri-state or multi-state area,
Right.
of northern Jersey, and what most people know about New York, like that part of it.
Thank you for calculating that for me, because I was also, if anybody else is confused, I'm also confused.
It's not like Albany, which is like most of New York, like the big portion, but like the little point that sticks out.
Yeah.
So you guys lived in kind of that area.
Yeah.
And then you were there for, I don't know however long you were, and then
And Jersey City, by the way, is fantastic. I'm just going to do a plug for Jersey City. If there's any folks from Jersey City listening, I'm a big fan.
so my dad lived in New York City and worked, but he lived and worked in Battery Park. So
I worked in Battery Park for a little bit too.
it was cheaper for him to park his car across the river because there's a tunnel. If people don't know that, but it was cheaper for him to park his car, across the river in Jersey City and just leave it there and just walk around and do his thing. And so he would walk from his apartment, which if you're like picturing in your mind, if you're on the right side of that neighborhood, you can actually see out on the water and see like the Statue of Liberty and all that kind of stuff. So like picture World Trade Center building, like that part of town. He would walk through that and take these super duper long escalators down through Battery Park and then go to his job in the Woolworth building or go to northern Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I think his first apartment might have been in Newark actually, which is not that far from New York really.
No, it's really not. It's if you don't drive it, it's train rides.
Yeah, and it wasn't even an apartment. He rented a house from a gal in Newark, but it might have been Patterson, Jersey, but I think it was Newark. And so it's a beautiful place, but it's not Minneapolis or Chicago. It's not the Midwest. It's certainly got its own, it's got its own personality and everything that is decidedly very, very East Coast, and it's a big frickin' place.
Completely. And you have Penn Station right there, which is the main train hub that you come into or leave to go to New York, and it's packed. And it's not like the Penn Station in New York City, which is also packed, but probably a little less upkeep.
Yeah, I think people think about Penn Station and like Madison Square Garden Penn Station.
Yeah.
It's not that one. So it's not exactly what you see on the TV. It's a huge freaking place if you're from Bangor, Maine, or Bangor, Wisconsin.
And so you would think I'd be saying culture shock. But at that point, having already traveled and lived elsewhere, I was just open-minded. I was up for anything, and nothing really caught me off guard. We lived in Newark. We lived above a pizza joint, which is fantastic because I love pizza. Yeah. And it felt right.
So did you have children now?
No. Okay.
So when your wife is doing law school, right, originally, and then is she a practicing lawyer at this point?
She is.
Okay. And so how did that all transition? From a job perspective and all that, like how did that all work along her path?
Because you guys were there for a while, law school after that, and then you moved again.
So law school, and then she hooked on with KPMG while we were out there.
The investment guys? Is
Like-
KPMG the investment?
the big four.
Yeah.
Big four, big dog, like like KPMG, like what you see on the golf hats is what I say. Is KPMG. It's
Exactly.
Got it. Yep.
Big impressive job. Again,
Yeah.
she's super smart. Smart, attractive, charming. Don't know why she's with me, but we're gonna
We're
fly
gonna try to
past
figure that
part.
out.
I think it's
but
because
in like
you're-
hour one, maybe minute 20. Then we'll finally figure out what it was.
No, I think
but-
it's he was persistent because
Oh, that's good.
she's like, I'm gonna go to law school in New Jersey, and he's like, I like Jersey,
Love Jersey.
Make friends there.
and that's pretty much it, right? He's like, don't, I've got you now. I'm not letting go. I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
She's like, oh, okay,
Minus the death part.
we're,
right after
we're
that, though,
doing
but-
this.
Which,
Okay.
if you think about that, like Rose from that movie Titanic, she clearly had enough space on that piece of boat,
Yes.
she was not having it.
like to bring him on there.
She wanted a long distance relationship there. I
Yeah,
bet.
yeah, from the beyond, because like, hey Jack, come up here on this extra large
I'll blow
piece
the
of
whistle for
rafter.
both of us. It'll
You
be
know,
okay.
no, I'll stay on the water. That was intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a gangster G move, right there. And after
did a great
dude
job.
died, she took his damn name. No permission.
Didn't she have a necklace too?
Yeah, huge.
The big one.
Right, the big one took all liberty. Anyway, so you're doing your thing, and then you work, and you're like, all right, East Coast, pizza joint.
Back to the show.
Well, yeah. So this was after many moves out east or in the greater New York City area. We got to the point we were flying back and forth for the holidays, which is exhausting and expensive. And you start kind of getting that feeling where we're getting to the point where, okay, we've got good careers, we know the direction we're going, but
Yeah.
we want to settle down. And to do that, we want to be near family. And her family is here in Mankato, mine's in Wisconsin. We thought, let's get back to the Midwest.
What's her
However,
maiden name?
pardon?
What's her maiden name?
Craig, she kept her name.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a long last name, and I can't blame her one bit for not wanting to keep it.
It looks bad on a jersey. Not good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
True fact, they actually had to shrink in the numbers on my baseball jersey, or the letters in my baseball jersey, to account for. It's really depressing.
How long is the last name exactly? Letters.
14.
Yeah. So, and
First grade was, let me tell you,
I'm 4. I got a 4-letter last name.
brutal. Craig, though, and where are we going with that? Oh, so that we moved to we're like, okay, the city was great. We really, really enjoyed it. There was so much. We're big in culture, restaurants, kind of blending in. That was the beauty of being in New York. You blend in, and we didn't want to lose that. And so we were like, okay, what are our options? Minneapolis, not yet.
Chicago.
That was going to be it. And this whole time, I'm trying to be strategic about our choice and leading her there. Obviously, I had an interest, a dream, if you will, of moving to Chicago so I
vision.
could go to Cub games as much as I
Simple
want.
man's hope.
So you're a big Cubs fan?
I'm a huge Cub fan.
Really?
That's it. I love baseball. Cubs are, it's my wife, the Cubs, and my dogs, sometimes not in that order.
Okay, so
It depends on the team that year.
Exactly.
Are you the guy who, I mean, you're watching like as many games as possible,
Yeah.
you'll DVR them, like you're... And
Got it on
you
my
know,
phone.
You know what guys are coming up from like the B League. I mean, I'm a hockey guy, so I
100%.
don't understand that. But you're talking prospects, like, hey, we drafted that guy in out of high school, and he's not going to be up here for maybe 8 years, but I
Yep.
know him the whole way, and you're watching stats and all that.
I'm feeling a little bit more depressed about that reality, but yes.
Okay, well, that's good. Now I know, because I'm the same guy. Like, I was not a hockey fan until I went to the University of Minnesota Duluth, and with Dan Sprague, who was our previous guest, and I fell in love with hockey. So I am that exact same way, except for the UMD Bulldogs. So I understand that irrational passion. I totally get it.
That's the dude. I mean, for real. And I think that was kind of like a foundational element of this friendship.
So how'd you guys meet?
We had a mutual friend named Jen, and it was actually her idea to set up this bromance.
Just gonna say you guys were set up on a blind date or something?
Well, this kind of speaks to the topic that we have for this podcast.
And now we're there.
No.
No, I mean, so you guys go Chicago for a few years, and then you do that thing, and you're working there, and it's awesome, and it's amazing, and And then you eventually family try to be closer to parents, or parents get older, or you miss family, those kinds of things.
Yes.
And so you find your way to Mankato and start doing that whole jam. So I think we got there, right? She said, like our friend Jen said, I think that you two should meet, and I think you share some common interest. One of the two things she said, of like a bunch, but maybe two things, was he's not from here, neither are you, and he really loves the Cubs, as do you. And I was like, oh, yeah, I think I found a best friend. It was just really easy, and because I'm not from here, he's not from here, and like that was enough. Like that was enough to go, yeah, I want to meet this dude. And so I think she got us text message or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, do you want to meet for beers or whatever? And then I think we met and just talked about the Cubs
We did.
like, hey, how are you? Good to meet you. Where are you from? We did all that kind of stuff. And then we talked Cubs baseball for, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. I mean, like the bulk of the conversation was.
How long ago was this?
3 years ago?
About 3, I would say.
And so that's why I'm like, I want to have Brent come on and do, this kind of transplant, I'm not from here podcast.
Because I thought when you first put on the calendar it was transplants, and me not knowing you, I'm like, dude, this guy's a transplant doctor. Like he's doing like super cool stuff. Like this is gonna be awesome.
Less cool.
No, but it's still cool. I'm not. But I was just like, that was the first thing that, because from me subjectively, I'm like, I don't think in a transplant way is like leaving town or leaving the state or living other places, because that's just not what I did. So
and there's some wordplay there too, but. For fun, why not? I mean, it's our podcast. We do whatever the F we want. F-bomb episode podcast, Tony.
Yeah. He's got the beep button back there. It's like a red one, I think. It's just, you got to push it, whatever it is.
But, we talked about, and then that evolved, but there was a theme in our conversations, and you can tell me to shut the hell up and don't go here. But there was a theme over the last couple of years that we live here, we have houses here, but we know we're not from here. And we talk about not being from here and how to break into that. Not in like a negative or disparaging way, at least all the time.
50%.
Yeah, just maybe half, right? And then, some of it's part nostalgia and reminiscing about things like, I miss this, or I miss, like for me, I can say something stupid like, I miss going to Portillo's and getting like a roast beef sandwich, or like Big Al's roast beef, or certain things for me that I really that I miss, that I don't have here.
That means nothing to me. It means a lot probably to you.
It's
you can smell it and do it, and like I miss, what I mean? Those kinds of things where there's some cultural relevance, of course, but if you live someplace else or you're from someplace else, it's not here, and so
it's like
kind
me
of
saying,
bond
remember
over
mom's
that.
goulash,
right? Or like you bond over those kinds of things. And so we have been talking about that. Yeah. And, to your point earlier, it's easy to do when you're 22.
Mm-hmm.
I can make 50 friends. But what about when you're 40 and you move someplace for a job and you start, like you have to restart that circle.
So how do you do that?
I don't know.
That's an interesting question.
We're still trying to figure that out.
Right. That's what we've talked about.
And here's the thing: it's not a pity party. We live in good neighborhoods. We have good houses. We have good jobs. It's tough though when you're used to. There's that other part. It just can't be materialistic. You have to feel like you're a part of something.
Yeah.
And when you're older, the people that you would normally gravitate towards are settled.
Yeah.
They have everything going on. They got kids.
You got it.
Their kids are their social life. They've got jobs. And new people, unless they're your neighbor that just moved in, it's foreign to them to a certain extent. And it's not their fault. They're just living their lives. They don't know. You wouldn't know except for the Duluth piece, and you love it here. So you're not thinking about what it would be like for Wade or myself to really break in and feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I like, people are like, well, like Old 60. I'm like, well, yeah, Old 60, yeah, I'll meet you right there. It's like,
I have no idea what the hell that is.
You don't know what,
Right, I have no idea.
Can I get beer there?
Right.
So, that to me it's just so interesting to hear your side of the story, because I personally, like, I left to Duluth because and I had intentions of being up there and just, job market stuff, whatever. But, coming back down here, it's like I can go and walk by and be like, hey, so-and-so, I remember you from X, Y, and Z a while ago, whatever. Or, hey, there's a connection I need to, make over here, and that person knows that person, where you don't really have that. Or trying to break into a social circle. Not that they're excluding you necessarily, but it's just not a focus of, like, unless, like you said, unless it's a neighbor or they're not at a soccer tournament or hockey tournament or whatever like that. They have some, they're run into you or whatever.
Well, and even the work thing too. We talked about that earlier. You can make friends within the workplace
and grow from that.
Grow from that. But again, it's just a matter of the timing and where people are, what stage of their lives they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think to get to the point where I can make those connections too, being here for, like nearly a decade. And for my law practice, you just meet a lot of people and you're trying to be out there, go to all the networking stuff, and then just time passes, and so you make connections that way. But it's just since that I've moved here. And to push back on what you said, not like they're necessarily trying to exclude you. I don't think it's intentional, but I can tell you the number one question that I get when I meet somebody from southern Minnesota, from this area, from Mankato, from this area. Guess what the number one question is?
Where are you from?
Bingo.
Is it really?
Bingo. Where are you from? So where are you from?
Fairmont.
Winnebago. And I go,
New Ulm.
Janesville.
Waseca.
Which is great, right? And
it's so funny.
We're making it up
that's
now.
the number one question.
I didn't even realize it.
Yes, it is.
Like, where are you from? Oh, I live, down in Blue Earth,
Oh, you know the Gustafsons? And so.
Oh, yeah, the Johnsons? Oh, yeah, down there, they own a shoe shop.
Yeah,
they do. You want some goulash? Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet for Brent, he gets, so where are you from? And I'm like, oh.
I don't even know how to answer that anymore.
Right, I'm like, so what I say now, and I have for a long time, is, I live from here. I live in Mankato. Oh, yeah, but, and then the second question is,
but where are you from?
Do
you like to ice fish?
And I'm like, no, like, I grew up, like, I live in Mankato. Yeah, but where are you from? Are you from Mankato?
That is so funny.
No, I live there, but you're not from there.
Is that an exclusive, like an exclusion type
So
comment?
to your point, man, I'm saying, you're like, well, they're not trying to exclude you intentionally. You're like, oh, okay. Like, well, I'm actually from Waukegan, Illinois. Where's that? Well, most people know it because
it's in the United States.
It's in north. It's north. It's north of Chicago, and most people know like where I'm from because of the Great Lakes Naval Base. Because people were in the Navy. It's on Lake Michigan. Oh, okay. Well, how long you been in Mankato? About 10 years. Oh, so you're still pretty new to town yet. Okay.
You do not say that.
I swear to God. So here's the joke. Like, it's a story, but hopefully it's funny. We were at Mankato, and big shout out to Jake and his family. Love the Downs family. Appreciate you guys. We're at Mankato, and I'm sitting at the side of the bar that has the smaller chairs, right? Like, there's not like a full. It's like the little one.
Yep.
It's like the upper deck maybe. Mm-hmm. And so this conversation happens. And a lady overhears it, and the lady looked to be probably in her 60s. And as I'm walking out, she says, "Hey, I've been hearing that since 1979. And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "The whole, you're still new to town." And I was like, "Oh, God, where are you from?" She's like, "St. James. I'm still new in town." Because her husband's from Mankato, she's from St. James. "Not from around here, are you?" I swear to God.
That's so hilarious.
She's like, "Hey," she's like, I still get that. And I was like, wow. So is it intentional? I don't know. Is it exclusive? I can feel like it sometimes. Like, you got to try to break in, man.
So what I find is interesting, I'm just an inquisitive person. Like, I ask a million questions because I legitimately like to talk to people. I think it's fun. Especially you've had a lot of different experiences than I have. So I'm like, hey, I remember when I went in the tubes, which is, the subway, but in the tubes in Birmingham, or in London, and I'm like, dude, I'm in the most foreign place. I could have been on Mars. Like, I was the guy who stood there when you're not supposed to stand there, and the whole crowd is pushing you, and you're wondering where the hell you're supposed to go. And I got on the wrong train, and I'm in the wrong place. It was bad. But like, you've had those experiences. I've had very, very few of those. So to me, it's an inquisitive thing, you know. But that's only, again, subjective me. I don't know what everybody else's motivation is, but
You're not the norm.
Yeah, had we met, we would have hit it off.
Right.
Because of the question in Q&A. I would have reciprocated. And here's the thing. I think it's more so people are in their comfort zone.
They are.
And when you say something that's outside of that, it's not that they're trying to be rude. They're just, okay, well, I don't have a lot of knowledge about that, so I'm gonna move on.
Newark, New Jersey? Don't know.
Okay. I don't care about that.
Do you like farming?
I'm serious, man. You know.
That's so funny. That is so funny because I've heard the conversation, but I've never heard the conversation, if you know what I mean. Like,
I've had it so many different times.
That is so funny.
It's you guys fish? No. Do you hunt? No. Do you like hockey? No. Do you like how about that Viking game yesterday?
No.
I didn't catch it. Well, this is good. Okay, I'm gonna go now. But really good meeting you, Bart. Was it?
Yeah, Bart.
You're the best.
Yeah, Bob.
You know?
Nice job. See ya.
You know, which is not to say, you know, it's not a criticism of, you know, the culture and, you know, the people here at all. I think it's just how it is.
Okay,
it's
so
the same thing if they moved to northern Jersey, there's a framework for how many people can go there that are not from there. It's built into the system because nobody's from anywhere because there's so many people from everywhere. Whereas here, it's so deep that folks here, they stay here. There's a lot of generational stuff. Whereas like when I was in Chicago or Minneapolis, or I lived out east in Connecticut and worked in New York, hey baby, like everybody is coming from any place all the time. You make your, you know, like you make your place.
Yeah.
And like going to, you know, like the grocery store.
Yep.
I loved going to the grocery store, like when I lived out east or back home, in, Chicago or Minneapolis even. I loved not seeing a single effing person that I knew. You know,
that's where it is. You blend. You just
it's so nice.
You just go out and do whatever you want to do. If you want to go grab a coffee, you want to go grab lunch, or do some shopping. Even on your way to work, you do not bump into anybody. And when you go I went from Chicago to Mankato. All of a sudden, it feels like everywhere you go, you stick out. Even if you're not, you just have that. I have that feeling where.
Same.
Everybody's looking at me and I don't know what to say.
Yeah. But I would say I still have that feeling as well, though. You know, like I go, like, let's say, what's a good example? Okay, just like business-wise. Like, let's say as an example, you and I, we would go have, like, we would be talking professional stuff, but we would go, like, have a happy hour at 4:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, client walks in and they're like, oh, well, he's drinking a beer with some guy, you know, probably dinking around, whatever. It's like
exactly
that the anonymity of kind of what you're talking about is where you can just kind of do what you want and you don't stick out. Or I can sympathize in a small way with a little bit of that with in that way. But anyway,
yeah. So it's weird to go. Like the one time that I'm going to go to the grocery store. And like be in my pajama pants, like I'm gonna see
your Zubas,
right? Like somebody that I know or that
It's Bear Zubas.
Bear Zubas.
You know what I mean? And so like at the same time, you're like, well, are you complaining because you don't feel plugged in, or that you have a network of people or a social framework? Yeah, I'm complaining about that. That it takes it takes time to break in. Are you also complaining that people see you at the grocery store? It's like, which way do you want it, dude?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to know people or not? But I think it's about having this kind of cultural place in your community that you're not from here, but you live here. But where is like your place, and do you feel good in that place?
So do you feel like you belong here?
For me, I do feel like I belong here, but I have worked very hard to carve out a space and have friends. And and build a network, business network, professional network, whatever you want to call it, and social network, kids help, and all that kind of stuff. But as I'm getting like older, what I found is it's not relative to the geographic location. I feel like I belong here because I made that part of my framework internally.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I can belong anywhere.
Yeah.
But not because it's here, but because I wanted to feel that way. And I did things to actively feel that way. Known you for a long time, friend, I can make friends and do my thing.
Yeah. So your wife is also not from here. Wade.
She's not. Yep.
Yep. Now your wife is from here.
Yeah.
Do you find Erin, right? Did I get it
Erin.
right? Okay. So is it a little bit easier maybe if Erin has some roots here?
You know, it's an interesting question, and we both kind of felt like that would be the case. And really, she was a bit just as shocked, not shocked, just as she struggled just as much as I have because things have changed so long and she's been gone so long. People have moved on, and your cliques or networks are no longer there, and she's feeling the same thing. We were in this big city, and we're doing our thing. And while we want to meet people here in Mankato, we also just kind of want to not be seen when we're out. I feel like
Those are contradictions, right?
They are.
100%.
That's what I'm saying.
We're psychotic, and this is a complete bitch session. And you know, thank you. Another beer.
But no, so that's been the funny thing is when you first come and you're trying to figure out how to get yourself plugged in. When we moved here, I had to work on my law practice, and I had 2 little kids. I had babies, basically. Not basically, I had babies. That's how, Jesus Christ. I had like a 6-month-old and like a 17-month-old kid, right? And I moved to West Mankato, which is a real neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Like if you know the area, it's kind of like classic mid-20th century neighborhood. And and you live not too far from there.
Right.
And so it's like there are a lot of people there. I was so focused on just, I need this job. I have to work at this. I got these kids. We're in a recession. It stinks. I had no time really for anything like that. Once that was over, then I have time. And like, who do I want to spend it with? Like, who do you call to go on a Friday? Like, hey, do you guys want to go out for dinner? Or come over for barbecue or something? All the traditional ways of doing that, which, it's the bowling club, the bridge club, the YMCA, go to church, all those kinds of things. Those institutions have somewhat gone by the wayside. They're not as robust as they were. So you can go find a spot to get into, if it's phone and social media and all that stuff. And so by the time we got there, it was almost like I was waiting for my kids to get into school to get plugged into some other, like group of people. But so like right now, we're probably 5-6 years into that part. But it's still, it's a constant thing where I don't know who I would necessarily call. There's some, there are a few people, but long-standing relationships. I can't go to my brother's house. I can't go see my mom down the street.
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
You can't drop off the kids.
Right. I can't just go,
Yeah.
like everything is so intentional and planned. And
so my question with that, so you and I met about 8 years ago? I'm trying to do the math.
yeah.
It's
2011,
about,
2012.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, maybe 9. Yeah.
Maybe 9 years.
Yeah.
It was probably 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So now I'm doing the math, like hearing the story now, because when we originally talked, this isn't how we talked. It wasn't like, I feel like I can't make any friends or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, hey, I'm Matt, you're Wade. Okay, well, you do estate planning, and I have clients that need some of that help, and so that's how we can hit it
It's
up.
like, cool, you like beer? He's like, yeah, me too. Like, all right, let's go hang out.
Well, let's go over there. Okay. But so then how did you and I hit it off and get to know each other where maybe you didn't have some of those other relationships, or like, you kind of get what I'm asking?
Yeah, I do. I was wide open to finding and building some relationships.
You're gonna take anybody.
Yeah, I mean,
Any place,
friends.
right time.
right, you know what I mean?
You said beer.
You like anything? Or like fun in general, even a little? I'll
Plus,
take you.
okay, so like I'll back up here. So yeah, I mean I have standards, obviously, but
Obviously low.
yeah, but
Same here.
Yeah, there you go. Look at
but I
this.
still have them, And so I was wide open to that because I wanted to build, certain kinds of relationships, if it's a sales relationship or, like professional relationship. And there's a gender component to this. And I think for certain types of personalities, for men, it's pretty easy for us to get along generally, right? Like I said, oh, you like beer? Oh, hey, I like beer too.
I might not like the Cubs, but we have something in common because we have a
But
passion for a team.
Let's find common ground, right?
Yep.
And we're kind of in similar fields, and so it builds. And then it goes from this professional thing to a, more of a relationship. And so my kind of test is, which is not really a test, I guess, is, whatever, I don't care. Once you get to
choice, because we got
hit the red button, Tony. It's coming.
So, right, it is coming. Sorry. So, once you get to the kind of what they call in comedy like the dick and fart jokes.
Yeah.
It's simple, kind of stupid humor, but it's extremely revealing about how far, what depth does this relationship have.
Where is your trust level
Right.
at?
And so you switch from being like, okay, if I can tell, these kinds of jokes and not necessarily like lewd material or something bad like that, but
Not something you'd say in front of a client
Right,
or in a professional business meeting or something.
you're sitting at the pub and you're telling jokes, right?
You went George Carlin on me. I
Right.
don't, yeah.
Yeah, he did that pretty early too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're like, hey man, this is what I'm like. Let's go. And if that's there, then that's it for me. Like I'm in. Like, let's be friends. And so then it matters to me, and I put the time in. I just think it's not typical for this area, and so like Matthew, Bradley Brozak, for example, you're not the norm for the area, and so there's a reason why you know me and I know you. I'm not from here, you are, and also why I met Brent, and we hang out. And what's funny is most of the friends I have in this area, very few of them are actually from here. Most of them are not from here.
So is it like a clique thing?
It seems like it.
Well, that's the thing. I was not popular in high school. That's a whole nother conversation.
Me neither.
And it was very cliquey. And of course, being young and dumb, I always wanted to be a part of that clique. And when we moved here, it started coming back a little bit. And look, again, this isn't, a cry for help for friends. Hey, I'm Brent.
His phone number if you want to call him and be his friend.
This. But it is a little bit intimidating when it just kind of hits you again, and all of a sudden I'm stuck in a locker and I don't know how to get out.
It's always fun, like for me to like.
So funny you say.
I'm stuck in a locker. Stuck in a locker and I don't know how to get out. So, like I've seen the what I'll call like the kind of Midwestern passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in cities and rural environments and and the like. So it's not specific to here at all. Even though I do really recognize, like when game recognizes game, there's a particular brand in Minnesota that is like top-notch passive aggressiveness stuff, right? So like you got to reckon like tip of the hat kind of thing. How you doing, right? It's like the old comedy bit from, not too bad. Well, are you doing good? Well, not too good. Well,
I'm doing all right.
Are you doing okay? Well, can't complain. I mean, are you doing well or not?
Yeah.
Well,
I can complain about some stuff.
could be worse,
No one's going to listen anyway.
Right. And so this whole thing of, I've seen this kind of passive aggressive thing go where I can tell 4 people know each other in a circle, and like if I'm in that circle, I might know one of them or whatever. I will not be introduced.
It's like a script. It's
Seriously.
It's robotic in some ways, where you touch on the surface level stuff, the surface level questions, and you can tell pretty quickly if it's not going anywhere at that point, and they're not like you, and they're not digging further and trying to get to know you a little bit more. It's done. You're out.
See, and I just find there's a lot of just people that frankly are just kind of boring. They don't really care to ask, or they don't, they're just in their own world and things and stuff. I mean, I get that too.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to like relate and trying to understand from your perspective. I mean, like I hate going to like a whatever dress up thing and you got to go be like, hey, I'm Matt and you're Bob and where are you from? Because apparently I say that every time, which now I may be really guilty of, but we'll see. But like, that to me, it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go over here and good talking to you. You know, I mean, so maybe it's some of that. I don't know. Maybe we're just more boring, or we're not.
No.
as,
It's
out
but imagine that experience you just described as every single experience you have the first like 3-4 years you live here.
Okay, so you go to Newark,
Every
New
room
Jersey,
you
do
walk
have
into.
that?
No.
What's that?
You go to Newark, New Jersey. You live in Newark. Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Newark.
I've been listening. So you go to Newark. Is it the same way? People, you know, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Camden, Ohio, or something like that. Or is that even the right term? I don't even know. what
Camden,
that's.
New Jersey.
Camden, New Jersey. I'm in
Canton, Ohio.
Canton. Thank you. That's
There
what
you
I was
go.
trying to think of. But I mean, everyone's from a different place, so you can kind of all relate. And I mean, is that kind of the way it is? Versus, you know, oh, I live on 3rd Street. Oh, I grew up on 2nd Street. Oh, we were neighbors.
I think there's just a natural curiosity
Yeah.
by living out there and coming across so many different people. And you also tend to be a little bit more outgoing out in a bigger area like New Jersey, the northern New Jersey area.
So then, when you said earlier that you're a more of an introvert, what made you do that?
I love my wife.
Yeah, so there you go. It's like there's a pretty easy answer to that question for almost everything.
That was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I have to meet this gal because she apparently is a lot
Yeah.
of the reason you're doing all these things, which is cool. Which
Well,
is good.
like my favorite phrase, like I love Minnesota. You know, it's my adopted home state. I love the people here, and I really do. I just think it's more about presenting a perspective that people might not be thinking about because they're from here.
I don't find this offensive at all. I find it interesting.
So I think it's interesting too. But my favorite phrase, which I'd never heard in my entire life, but I think it fits where I call home and where I've raised my kids. And I'm from Illinois, but my kids are from Minnesota, right? And my wife is from Wisconsin, but our kids are from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So when they say, "Where are you from?" my kids will probably always say Mankato. Mm-hmm. So I love this place. It's a good place, and we're happy to live here. But my favorite phrase to describe the place is "watch your own bobber."
Because it makes sense.
It does make sense. Watch your own
Watch your own
bobber.
bobber.
Okay. And like I said the last time, that's why I got my bobber socks on. We had 2 fishermen the first time, and this episode reminds me of that phrase. That pretty much sums it up.
Dude, that's so funny.
Watch your own bobber.
And that's not even stuff you realize when you grow up here, because it's just that's a phrase. It's
Right.
just something that you say.
I've never heard it, but it means so much more than actually watching your effing bobber.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Well, it makes sense when you have 10 lakes within 15 minutes
Right.
of here right
Yeah.
now.
Go.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Watch your own bobber. Mm-hmm. It's totally true.
Maybe that's the name of this episode, not transplants, but watch your own bobber.
I love it.
Yeah, that's maybe a good idea.
So just kind of gravitating towards that.
Watch your own bobber from a transplant perspective.
Right, So, it's good, but like the flip side of trying to break into groups or find a social network, like Brent said, for your family, for, your wife or kids or whatever it is, what I have found is that once you develop a relationship with, folks, it's actually really meaningful. And if they're from here or not. And part of it is for you to go and put yourself out there and commit to, just, be yourself, but be there all the time. Don't try to be something that you're not. And once you get there, I feel like it kind of galvanizes and the cement hardens and the relationship is like, it's there. Mm-hmm. And you got people you can call on and so forth. It's just getting over that first part. It was kind of hard.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the challenge, but also the more the bigger reward when you get to this age, because you are set in your ways, you are in your own path. It is tougher to find people that you can really connect with and form that strong bond with from a friendship standpoint. And that's rewarding once you get there. And so that's why there's usually fewer of them, unless perhaps you've grown up in an area where some people, even if you have close friends, and then you've got the people that you've always known here that you consider,
It's like the circles, right?
your circle.
Yeah. This circle, that circle, the bigger the circle, the less you know them.
What I find is interesting, though, now that you bring this up, I hadn't really thought about this too much, because this, again, I thought we were doing like liver transplants or heart transplants or something originally for this episode.
You were gearing up your penis jokes?
No, well,
Right,
could be,
exactly.
yeah.
Right.
So Anyway, I won't even go into that.
Did you beep that? I think you should beep that.
So, but the funny part, now I can't even remember what the hell. Can you just delete this part? There's a penis joke. I'm like, shit.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm getting
No, the circles of like, you have your inner circle, like the next circle, the third circle, the fourth circle.
But what I find interesting about this place is I have I'm a very socially interactive person. I'm very curious. I really like to talk to people, and I like to just interact. Again, one of the main reasons we're doing this. But I have a really close group of really good friends.
Yep.
3, 4, 5. And then I have a lot of people that are like acquaintances that I don't feel necessarily comfortable, if something's wrong or I need help or something like that, to call. But like if I need sheetrock done, it's like, well, Freddie does that. I went to high school with Freddie. I played football with Freddie. I haven't talked to Freddie in 12 years, but I see him and I'll be like, dude, what's up? How you doing? Remember that one time when we, did that stupid stuff? He's like, oh gosh, that was funny. Oh yeah, by the way, I put a hole in the wall. I need to fix that because my wife's really irritated by it. But so my point is I think whether you're a transplant or whether you're not, I think one of the things that we're talking about here is you have a core group of people at a certain age where you just feel, I think the way to use the word galvanized, like you have a really good understanding of who you are, what's important, all those types of things, and you have a core group of people. Maybe the difference is that I know Freddie because we, did something, whatever, and played football in high school or something like that, where you guys don't have the outside core. It's just maybe the smaller group.
That's an excellent point, too, because when we first moved here, we bought our house, and we immediately knew we got to redo this kitchen. And it took us 3 years. We just finished it about a year ago. And it took us 3 years to actually find someone we're comfortable with because we didn't have the network to kind of go out and say, hey, who did yours? Who do you guys know? And it's the little things like that may not seem like a big deal, but they're really stressful. And when you just have that built in, if you can eliminate the stress, you're more comfortable in your home, your skin, out and about, and things become more natural.
So can I ask you a question about that first circle of friends?
Sure.
You don't have to name names, but where are they from?
All here.
What's that you say?
No, okay, so I got to think. Well, my best friend's Dan Sprague, but interesting though, Sprague and I went to high school together, and we knew of each other. Because his mom worked at Wells Fargo, my dad worked at Wells Fargo, and so we knew of each other. But we did not become friends, like really good friends, until freshman year of college. So he was sitting at a table, like orientation, and he's eating lunch, he's sitting by himself, and he's the only other person in the entire cafeteria that I have even seen before. So I sat down with him, and we've been best friends ever since. So, he's from here, but I wasn't friends with him until I left.
Thank you.
But like my college buddies though, I basically have my core group of friends, Sprague, Paul, who if Paul's listening, out in Clontarf, Minnesota. I said it right. It's not Clontarf, it's Clontarf. So you got to say that right. He'll like that. He's out lambing or whatever he's doing out there.
Maybe Ryan.
Ryan McDonough, who's from Florida, and Dave Werner, who is from Three Lakes, Wisconsin. So, but I went to college with all those guys, So they are from different places, but if I could say, hey, these are my absolute core, can't leave guys, those are really my absolute guys. No, I would include like people from Mankato. There's a reason Wade and I are doing this because he was the first call I made to do this. And Sprague doesn't want to do this.
Yeah. I was like, but I'm a really good 1B.
Yeah, you're a great one. Yeah, the B track or whatever what it's called. But so to answer your question, I guess my best friends that are here are from here, but the best friends I have, my core group of friends, are the ones I went to college with. So I guess I've never really thought that through or answered that question before, but.
I haven't either. I have my core group of buddies that are from college during that time, that period, and then I have people that I don't have history with, but I'm deeply fond of, and I think we get each other, and I didn't need 25 years of history with them. we kind of met ourselves where we were at the time. And what's weird about it is there are friends that are like 30, and I have friends that are 70.
Yeah.
And I feel like depending on the person, they might get me better if they're 30 or 70 or whatever the age is. And I didn't expect that before because my friendship diversity and my social circles were just so dense with the same age groups and belief systems and experience and all that kind of stuff. And when you're kind of forced to rebuild that, which is what I call like coming to Mankato, when you're forced to rebuild it, or if you want to, you actually have a chance to do it. Like not be, well, everybody here at this party is 35.
Yeah.
And we all have kids that are between this age and that age.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a ton of that going on. But once I did have a group here, of this like kind of varied age group and experience levels, what I found was the same problems or issues I was having, not everybody was having at the same time, which made me feel so much freaking better, because anybody that has a wife or a husband and you're all the same age, newsflash, you're probably experiencing a lot of the same stuff, and it's stressful and it sucks. Well, why? Because you're 35. You tell a guy or a gal that's 70 that, they laugh their ass off. And they're like, I remember those days.
Yep. Goes by quick.
I would love to go back there, enjoy it. It's so much fun. And you're like, what?
Do you see my children right now?
This is insane. Like, we can't even sit down for 30 minutes.
Yep.
I'm paying $150 so we can dump soda down people's necks.
Yes. Oh.
And I hate this. But if you tell 4 other people your age and your demo, they're going to tell you they feel the same way.
Yeah.
And this echo chamber of anxiety and crap just builds.
Yeah. Literally crap for a lot of it.
Literally just crap.
Yeah.
But if your friendship diversity happens to, really be developed, you actually feel better. And so I'm really happy I have friends that are not from here and that are from here. And like this right here, I guarantee this will happen sometime. We'll go goof off and and do this. That's the part that's awesome. So like the first half of the bitch fest about this sucks and it's it's
People
tough.
from here are terrible.
Right, this is bad.
Where are you from?
Watch your own damn bobber,
From
Gary.
Janesville? No.
What? Once you
Pemberton?
get there,
No.
Pemberton. Well, you probably wouldn't know where that is. No, I've been to Pemberton. Once you get past it, stuff like this happens.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And I guess I'd prefer it that way. And I'm not saying I want to go back to where I came from. I would like to bring some elements from back there to here. And I think that we have.
Do you think it's any way generational, or it's just like the people, or it's the geography, or because I think, and again, subjective Matt, who knows very little about the world, but to me, it seems maybe it's a little bit generational. I don't know.
I think it could be, especially for a lot of people who grew up here and they're really close to their families and they've grown up the same way and they followed the same line and they watched how their parents interacted with their friends and how they were out in public. And I think it just kind of carries on to a certain respect. And then I think it's just the person.
Yeah.
The comfort.
So if you would have stayed, and you'll love this, I think. At least I will. Oh, whatever. If you had stayed, because I know you and I know where you're from. If you had stayed in Bangor, who's there? Mom, dad?
Mom and dad.
Siblings, friends?
It's just cousins and the works. Yeah.
So
Sibling.
what would that have looked like if you stayed? Like, are you the black sheep who left to not have any friends? Or like, if you would have stayed there, are you at the pub and watching the Packers hang out and like?
Oh, watching the Packers, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
let's get a little Busch Light there,
and,
Watching those
catch a
Packers?
game.
Yeah. You want to go down there?
Here's the thing.
You want to go ice fishing, though? You can go there before, you got to watch your own bobber, though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. That's how it is, dude.
That actually, so this is where we're going to have to edit this for my family, but I am terrified by what that would have looked like.
Right.
Because I totally could. I mean, I've got friends classmates that I grew up with that I witnessed what that path would have been. You get married at 18, you get a job, and it's just a job. And part of me actually is jealous of that. Just having a job where you're just putting in hours, you're getting back, you go to the pub, and you get drunk.
Yep.
And that's what it would have been.
You watch the Packers and go home.
6 kids, whatever. You go to the basketball game, the high school basketball game. You go yell at some players, some refs, whatever that is. You go to the local fish fry. And, it's a good life. It's a good life for people. I would have missed out on so much because I am – this goes back to the people piece. I'm not that kind of person. Again, I am an introvert despite all this. And I'm not one that's going to go out of my comfort zone and try to get to know people. If I would have been there, living in different areas forced me to do that, and then I learned to like it.
Yeah. And so I think that's the benefit right there.
In my change in my – maybe it was conscious or subconscious – but when I did my study abroad in Birmingham, I'm like, dude, there's so much of this world that I don't even understand or know. And maybe that was me thinking outside, like, hey, I just want to learn and talk to people and be open-minded about whatever. I mean, there are some people. I still have a friend that I met over there that I still keep up with. And, I mean, he and we talk a couple times a year. And Rob and I talk. And, that was 13, 14 maybe 15 years ago, whatever it was. But I don't know, I'm just like, that was kind of the change of like, there's so much more out there and there's so many more experiences. And maybe I didn't go out and have all those. But to me, I had some of them and it was okay. But like, I like going ice fishing too.
This can't be about what you may have missed.
Yeah.
It's not. That's what the beauty of this. We're all
and
so
I don't take
different.
it that way at all. Yeah.
And that's how we gravitate towards each other because we're actually interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's optimism as we get older. I have optimism in who else I'm going to meet. It is tough in Mankato. And part of that is because the last year we've all been stuck at home. The first year I was here, I worked remotely. And so I didn't get out of my house. I worked out of my house. And that also kind of put me...
That's going to be incredibly isolating at that point.
100%.
Yeah.
And so it's a progression. 8 years and like, okay, or 10 years. And I got a few more years where I'm finally there. I think, by the way, I would have been the captain of the bowling team.
Yeah.
If I would
Are
have
you
stayed
a bowler?
home. I was born above a bowling alley.
Exactly. That's why I want to bring it up.
Really?
Yeah. We lived in an apartment above a bowling alley. I fell
Like
asleep
you were born
to.
in the bowl? Like,
Well, no. I mean,
okay. Well, you were brought home.
Well,
too.
who knows? I mean,
Okay.
maybe that story is just not. Maybe
You're
my
from
mom
Wisconsin.
was,
There are less
throwing back
rules there.
beers.
I'm just saying.
She was on the bowling team, and she was like, "Oh crap, this is going to happen now. Give me a shot."
Yeah.
But and both my parents actually bartended at that bar as I was growing up. I fell asleep to pins crashing and
Really?
jukebox music and swearing and the stench of smoke and spilled alcohol.
Yeah, because
which is
everyone's
fantastic.
smoking cigarettes at that point.
100%.
Well, I love like looking back on the photographs from that time period, like at my birthday parties. It's just cigarettes and ashtrays and beer bottles and stuff like that. But I think like the reason for the question, like if you were back in Bangor and you're there, I would have probably, like if my dad or my brothers were around, I know that I would just kind of be hanging out with my dad and my brothers. I mean, like, like my brother's texting me right now. He's like, "Are you in the podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I love fishing too. And like, I'm a, city kid, but going on Lake Michigan, catching salmon and trout is effing awesome. It's a great time. I would be hanging out with my brothers and my dad. And like, I know for a fact, I am so insecure. I'd be having like dinner at my parents' house or my mom's house at least 2 times a week just to get the pats on the back.
Still letting them do your laundry.
Right. If she wanted to, or you know what I mean? Just to go hang out.
Volunteers. Sorry, she said.
Go hang out with your dad or have him, like, "Hey, you want to, I got to change a couple light bulbs. You want to come over here and we can talk about that?" Sure. I'd be there like, and I'm telling you, man, like the 20-year-old version of me, I would never have thought I would ever say that. But I could live down the lane or down the road from my in-laws or from my dad or my mom, especially now. No problem. And be happy as a pig and,
Well, it's so funny because that's
Seriously.
like, my dad will call me and he's like, "Hey, you want to go change out the SD cards on the cameras out at the deer shack?" I'm like, "Sure,
Sure.
So you hop in there,
Be right over.
Yep. So we hop in the truck, we go out there, drive through the property, change the SD cards, and then we stand at the end of the driveway, have a beer, talk about something stupid, and then we go home.
All right, Dad, I'll see you later this week, I'm sure. Bye.
See ya.
So I would totally do that.
Yeah.
But I think it might also mean that I would not have met a guy like you, like Matt, Brent. I wouldn't have, because I wouldn't have had to. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it's not a criticism of the people that are from here. I get it. Mm-hmm. Like, I got enough friends. I don't need any new friends. You don't even like the Vikings. I don't want you at my house wearing a
really like
Bears
the
hat.
Vikings
It's gonna be
either.
awkward.
You know, I've watched more Vikings games just trying to make friends. You know, hey, you want to come over for the Vikings game? No, just stop inviting me, okay? And then they do because I can be really annoying. I'm like, God, yeah. If you want to watch a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl ever, sure, yeah.
You lost
So-
your other half of listeners right there.
Right.
Well, that's okay. We have very few.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time this is done,
It's something, but
Tony will have figured out some editing to make us sound even more impressive, and we'll have like 72 listeners.
But that's the thing is you kind of do all these things, and you put yourself out there. If I was local and home, like back in Waukegan or in Bangor, I would not have the Why would I? Like, why would I do it?
So here's something I just thought of as we're talking through this. So being an entrepreneur, putting yourself out there, like a lot of the stuff since COVID with business is I'm putting way more stuff, way more than I ever would want to, out there, like videos and just promotional stuff. And because I can't go and shake hands and do the
Right,
stuff
right.
and that you normally do, go to lunch or, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee, that type of thing. And to me, I would feel more comfortable doing it in a place where people don't know who Brad and Kathy Brozick are.
Same.
Where if I were in somewhere elseville, it's like, well, if I screw it up, no one's going to be like, well, hey, Brad, I saw your kid out there. Wow, he really, he did this. To me, it's almost harder for me to do that.
It is,
not
man.
because it's like I'm going to, create a family stain or something like that's not it. But it's like who's watching this stuff, and they saw me grow up from
Right.
a little kid. It's like, well, you remember the Brozicks? Yeah, they were right in front of us at church. At Christ the King growing up.
Right.
I mean, it's like. So maybe that's another thing on the other end of you don't necessarily want to stick out because there is some...
The eyes are watching for
The
sure.
eyes are watching.
Yeah. So, like, nobody knows, like, the Abid family, aside from the really low bar I'm setting right now, right?
Well, that's why I went to Duluth instead of MSU for
Like,
exactly
are
that
you,
reason.
are you Wade's kid? Or, like that's not going to happen. Oh, I knew your grandpa.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Like,
You better get home because Grandpa would be mad.
right. It's like, I don't even know my grandpa. There's no way you do.
Yeah.
Or like, for Brent's family, it's like the same deal where it's like, oh, are you,
Yeah.
Whereas that, I think it does create a certain, I guess I describe it as there's a certain framework for you of like how you can talk, where you can go with your thoughts, ideas, and who you hang out with, and
Yep.
like where you go. Like, there are people I know that would, say like, oh, I'd never go to the Oleander. I wouldn't be caught dead there, or I would never go to, this place or that place, or, oh, I only go here, or I don't like that side of town. All these little micro rules that you would know.
Yeah.
Because, hey, Brad, I saw Matt on Riverfront.
Yeah.
He's
He's at the What's Up, you know that?
he was at the What's Up Lounge. I heard somebody. Thanks. Thanks. I'll talk to him. Okay.
Yeah.
It takes the thinking out of it when you're not
Yep.
feeling like you're in a smaller community
Yeah.
and everybody doesn't know you. You can just more
Everybody's
natural.
anybody, and you're just out. Mm-hmm.
You get your true self at that point.
Yeah. And that's literally how I felt when I went to Duluth, because I could just
Be you.
be me.
Yeah.
And it's not like you talk about the high school clique stuff. It's like you don't have to worry about like doing something goofy and all of a sudden you get stuck in what did you call it? You were
Locker.
put in the locker.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
take your pick. There was multiple things. I don't really want to talk about it. Where's that beer?
Should we start that? Like maybe we should go that direction.
Right.
Not
No,
any
so-
lockers.
So
And I was always tall, by the way, so that made it even more awkward.
Oh, that had to be tough. Yeah.
They're like, get in here, Christopher. I can't say your stupid long last name.
Christopher.
Get in here, Brent Chris.
Fit on the jersey. Get in there.
Well, there's nicknames. Let's not go into that. There's plenty of nicknames.
For me, like, to your point about the eyes watching, the hills have eyes. I have no reference for Mankato aside from there was Mankato State, and it's the late 90s, and I knew that there was a school here. But I have no history here at all, right? Mm-hmm. My best friend in the world, Brandon Lee Hayes, went to school here for like 19 years. And so
did he graduate?
He did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like the old joke, It only took you 8 years, Like, yeah. So I'd been here like twice. Mm-hmm. Like I went to see him. He was like a bartender at Hooligans, right? So like I drive in from Wisconsin to Hooligans. I'm like, you're a bartender at a bar in a mall? Okay, cool, man. Whatever. Let's party.
You want to watch the Vikings?
I don't care. Let's party, dude. And then I came back and he was like at like the Hayes or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I have no frame of reference. So I come down here, I get a job as a lawyer, and then I meet some dudes at like some event, right? Some GMG thing or whatever. And we go out and they take me to, what's a strip club in town?
Meddy's.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be the first one to answer that.
Yeah, okay, so
Meddy's. I'm from here.
yeah, so it's Mettler's, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Mettler's,
And so we go
Meddy's if you're from here.
Yeah,
Mettler's
like-
if you're not.
Okay, that would have been a differentiation.
which is funny because that's like I can tell how
Oh,
old
you're not from here yet.
how old I'm getting. I couldn't remember that it was Mettler's, which is kind of like it's a cultural touch point here, right?
It's a cultural touch point. Yeah.
Because it's been there forever. Mm-hmm. Like you can talk to a guy who's 70, he's like, I went there in 78,
Mm-hmm.
And so they take me, to this place, like the Loose Moose, and we go there, and you're at the, as my grandpa would say, you're at the ballet. And so I leave, I go to work like the next work day. If it was maybe like it was a Thursday night thing, went in on Friday, or like a Friday to a Monday. One of the folks I worked with, a partner guy, said, I heard you at Mettler's. And I'm like looking around like, what?
What are you, a cop?
I'm like, what? Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you, a cop? He's like, I'm just telling you, this town is small. There are many different eyes. And I heard you went to Mettler's with a bunch of, guys on Thursday. And I was like, okay. He's like, which is fine. I mean, you can do that, but I'm just letting you know. And he's not from here either,
yeah.
but he had been here long enough, right? And that put me on notice. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, And
it's funny, I've never been there. I've never stepped foot in there. Not for whatever reason we don't need to get into.
But that's this whole watching thing, right?
That probably subconsciously, that's a part of it.
And so
I've
I was
never
like,
stepped foot in there.
I know I joked about it, but I haven't either, for the record. Erin,
I've not been to
my wife.
Mettler's. But I mean, that's that whole thing of, geez, okay. I guess the hills really do have eyes. Right.
But Mankato doesn't have that reputation from the
it
outside.
doesn't.
We visited here every Christmas while Erin and I have been together, and we never expected it to be like this. We chose this area because we thought, okay, there's a lot of potential, and there is a lot of potential, but we had no idea what we'd be going up against. There was no distinct reputation. It's all you make of it when you're here and you start feeling that.
Mm-hmm. And maybe to a certain extent, anywhere you go,
That's true.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
probably going to have some of this stuff, especially in the Midwest where it's just the exposure to maybe culture is different or something. I don't even know exactly
Sub-zero
how to explain
weather.
that. You know what I mean, though? It's like, maybe, you go to wherever. I mean, I think smaller-ish town, you're going to have at least a little bit of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I went to school in Wisconsin, and my family in-laws are from a small town. And there's a certain part of that I think is just it's just baked into the cake. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're from small town Wisconsin or small town South Africa, wherever it is, it's part of the human DNA, right? Like we have, this whole concept of tribes.
Noticing something different.
And we make our own tribes and all that kind of stuff. But I think the broader point is once you get kind of that, past that outer shell, you find that there's also something else baked in the cake, which is we're extremely social creatures. Mm-hmm. And that once you get past this whole thing of I don't care where you're from or what you do or how much money you make or how smart you are or what degrees you have or if you're tall or short or whatever, everybody wants to find some connection. It's just built in there to be safe and to feel love and to have fun and laugh and be as close to your authentic self as you can be as much of the time. And when you find people that you can do that with, they become your effing friends.
Yeah.
It's just how much do you have to chip through to get there? And there's, that's everywhere. And there's a fair amount of it here too.
That's really interesting. I'm super glad that this wasn't about heart transplants.
I'm not.
You can only get so far with that.
No. I, like when you put transplants, I'm like, wow, this is going to be amazing.
Well,
but I'm really glad because this is a perspective that you've touched on a little bit, but you have not told me this much.
Nobody wants, to see somebody cry tears in their beers, right? And even though I do like to see Brent cry in his beer when he reminisces being in that dark locker.
I do it a lot.
But no, my
Dark locker, I can't get out.
one of my dearest friends I've known forever, is Aaron Sims, and he just turned 40. He actually is getting a kidney transplant.
Really?
And he's kind of like waiting to have that happen. So that's also why I didn't want to do a transplant one, because he's on my mind. And we grew up together. Just superb human being, hyper smart, great athlete, good family, just a fantastic person. And he got sick, right? He has this autoimmune disease. It's really hard in his kidneys and whatever. And he's like a jacked, like looking great kind of dude. 6'4", 6'5".
Did he go to Lake Michigan with you?
No,
man, that was a different guy.
Derek Baston, another guy from Detroit.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to do a transplants one because of that, because he's supposed to get he was supposed to get a transplant, but he got delayed because of COVID-19 and some complications. But he's actually getting a kidney from like really soon, and he's like 40.
So what we should do is when he's recovered, healthy,
and he watches this podcast,
then he can sit right there. So if you're watching, yay, right there, you're in.
Yeah. So Aaron D. Sims. So that's why I was like, ugh. Maybe we call it like the Watch Your Own Bobber episode, but
that's probably a good idea.
Being a transplant, I don't know. I guess I felt some guilt and shame about talking about it, because I think this community has been really generous and so good to my family overall. We have a nice home and we're healthy and the kids are good and the schools are good, and it's been a really generous community that way. And I have really wonderful friends. So I didn't want to be too critical of it. But I know from conversations I'm not the only person that has had a hard time breaking in, because I've heard jokes like this. If you think it's hard to break in here in Mankato, try living in New Ulm.
New Ulm is different culturally from Mankato.
Right, okay, right.
Yeah. Now, if I moved to New Ulm, we'd have a lot in common.
Sorry, dude.
It is, dude. It is. No joke. New Ulm is different than Mankato, and we're funny because we're not that far away.
That's what I mean.
It is different. It is. It's what it is.
My kids wanted to know what it was like, and so we watched Grumpy Old Men.
Yeah.
And with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon.
Watch Your Own Bobber.
So watch your own bobber. Anyway, I think we're closing it up. We're pretty close. So Brent Christopherson,
yes.
If you have anything going on you want to plug, give a shout out, say hi to somebody. The camera is on you, and I think your camera is right there.
Hi, Erin, my lovely wife. I made it big. I'm on the podcast. This is my breakthrough moment. This is all I wanted. This whole thing was just set up for me to be famous. It's not happening.
It's going to be amazing. Infamous, maybe. We'll find out.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Tony. And we will see you again live and direct from the locker.